Hello and welcome, and today is Crypto Day, Thursday, 10th of May, 2018. This will be a video entirely devoted to Ethereum. I'll look at a couple charts I haven't even thought of yet, other than Litecoin and Bitcoin priced in Ether. But we'll start it off with an Ether against the United States dollar. I have a front-weighted 18 average, blue line, 18 average of highs, 18 average of lows. The volume and VWAP, which stands for volume weighted average price. Trying to figure out how to use it. It says unsupported resolution. Click on format, offset. I know with like horizontal rays, the bigger that number is, the larger it goes out. I don't know what this offset means. Style, got the color, I know what that means. Precision, I can choose up to number 8, but I don't know how to use it. They're pretty cool. I like to use it to see what the VWAP is from this level here, which would be right up around 500 and something, or just even a running average, which is the average price from this point. Spreadsheets do it easy. They do it very, very easy. I can do it with volume weighted as well, but it's not fun to do. A lot of number crunching and formulas. I mean, I don't mind doing it, but anyway, throwing that part aside, I'm just going to X that part out. And I'm not trading against the dollar, but if it's something I was looking to do, I'd be very interested in Fibonacci from here to here. I got a lot to cover, and I'm not going to calculate it. Let's notice this weekly chart. Point A, point B, point C, all that type of stuff. Point A low, $5 and change, but even $7 is good. It broke out of established a major resistance at about $15. In the game of trading, sometimes you think something is up too much. You want to make a big sale, look to buy it back cheaper, and you know what? At around $40, that was not the case. Even at about $70, you can buy that back cheaper. I mean, 128, you're talking about getting like 7x gain on the break of resistance. Didn't buy it cheaper. If you sold at 300, you caught the top if you were able to buy this bottom. Because if you think about market trading, if you don't sell up here on any type of peak, on an overextended market, that's one way of saying that I'm okay with short-term blips, which is what this is, because I realize better term days are coming, which of course is what the right-hand side of this market looks like. But to finish it off, this area here came back to where it came from, and selling that was done on the break of resistance at every point was successful. For when would you start selling this move? Maybe around 680, and of course anyway up to the top. But if it was a good time to start selling at 680 and the bottom was down to 370, everything was bought and back. However, patience in this game, playing a strategy of such, if you sold at 680, you would have done so in December of 2017. You would have had to wait well over around a quarter to get the buyback. So be it. That's how the game's played. And if you're waiting to buy back after selling at 121, well, I mean, if it goes down to like 70, you'll get it back. And if it doesn't, well, you haven't got it back yet. And of course, technical analysis breaking above this resistance uncharted new territories, which was the case breaking the resistance of 15, which was the case breaking resistance back here at the end of 2017. Let's take a look at this next against Litecoin. And this is Litecoin's performance versus that of Ethereum. So bullish for Ethereum going down, bullish for Litecoin going higher. And you can notice the major move that occurred after ever since Bittrex started trading this in the summer of last year, chopping up and down from June 25th through the start of the second week of December, and then a big rally that only took a week or so, and our price has never seen since. And then continuous downward action to the start of February. So therefore, most of December, all of January is how long this took. It went to lows relatively never seen, matching the original lows and of course the lows from down in here. So it gave everything it's always ever had back within the time. Codes, this is markets most people don't look at it, because Litecoin, Ethereum, you look at those codes against the fiat currency and against Bitcoin mainly. But it's just a matter of one divided by the other and playing the mathematics upon such and having a market where you can trade it. Then, with the big move, you can calculate Fibonacci, which of course has been done. And the move in here from February the 1st rallied all the way up through April the 3rd. 2 months. A few situations where it had a bullish move correct through time very well. Well, two of them. The original one, of course, had this correction resisting the 23.6 Fibonacci and then breaking it instantly within the day to the next key level, the 38.2. It supported it for quite some time because it even went further above it the next following day. When it broke its level of resistance, it grinded its way, piercing below this number. And when I talk about markets usually pierce extra, remember that's also against Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind. This is again a pure case of one divided by the next, where prices against US dollar, at least the main ones like Bitcoin and this Ethereum one, is very prevalent against the dollar. And every one of these codes is prevalent against Bitcoin because they are majorly common traded entities. Even though this might have decent volume, the volume of Litecoin and Ethereum against the other majors is so much more overwhelming than it is in this pairing. So it's mainly just one divided by the next, is how you're playing it. Continuing further. So since this move decline, April 3rd, it has now been a little over 1 month, with Ethereum overperforming that of Litecoin. As far as how we can read this chart currently, this area of key support was only support for about 3 or 4 days, and when it fell below, it's been grinding its way lower. And a move which then brought up itself to the 18 average, its best correction that it's had since its decline, and it's not that good of one. Price action had this one day where price action pierced again below key Fibonacci, but it followed it through by coming back to where it came from, to the 18 average of lows, following 3 days ago, leaving the 18 average of lows. Yesterday, consolidating that leaving period, hanging in there with where the lows established at around May 3rd and May 4th are, and continuation of such so far today, barely above the May 4th lows. It's really an indication that this thing should continue its trend towards this direction, and I'd be looking for a test of the 185. That doesn't mean that's necessarily going to be how it's going to be, but probability odds. If I was to make a wager of some sort, and I could, and I kind of barely do, I am doing that with my trading as it is, but If I were to make the wager that, okay, which direction is it going to go, here or here, I believe it would go there. And technically, I could make that bet. Just take some Litecoin, put it on an exchange, buy some Ether, yada, yada, yada. And then when the price goes down here, fail the transaction for a win. If the transaction goes up here, sell the transaction for a loss. And technically speaking, it would be closer to up here, as where I'd have the quote-unquote stop loss. But you know what, it seems whenever I make plays like that, I am not the luckiest in the world. Really, it's just something I would not feel comfortable doing. I'll let the market play as it plays, because I got much more Litecoin than I do have Ethereum. But of course, Ethereum I am holding as well, as I am a few other different coins. But that is its chart there. Let's move on next against Bitcoin. And we'll start off within the daily chart. Not many periods, but we'll scroll it through. I just want to... This is Litecoin, actually. Okay, quick Litecoin update. And this is the situation where it had its breakout. Now it's day number 5. So it's hanging in there, but it's at that lowest end where I'd want it to be. And I remember a long time ago, like a month or two back, thinking, man, if this area here breaks in, we're seeing like 163, 164 something, and it's just hanging in there within that number. So it's now becoming a very clear range between 156 and 182. But again, this is supposed to be all Ethereum. Now let's go Ethereum against Bitcoin, rather. And this is now more of a correct looking chart, looking at it on the Bittrex exchange. I'm going to change it up because I got lines on here. And whenever I bring the drawing tools, there's only one way to easily delete it. So, and I'd have to delete the lines as well. And I don't want to do that. So that's why if I bring that up, I'll literally just do a different exchange for codes like this in Litecoin. But as I'm seeing this within the lines, I want to keep it in place for now. Price action pierced above this line. See, Ethereum isn't too heavily traded against Bitcoin, because Ethereum's traded against a whole bunch of different things. It's got a good weighting against the dollar, and it's got a good weighting against a whole cumulative bunch of different amounts of other coins. Some exchanges, it's the base currency. So it really makes these levels very interesting, to say the least. And anyway, piercing above this level here, this mark in here resisted well below it on April the 24th, this line. It matched that on April the 30th. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but for now, it's finding support amongst where it came from, or place that should have been resistance. 3 days of just playing sideways amongst here. Therefore, I'd be looking for this to get above the 0.1 mark, 0.102, 103. If I see a break above this level of resistance. Now, do I think I'm going to see it? Let's look at this more further, but let's put this on a different exchange. I think Poloniex should be fine enough for this example. And what we have in here, look, again, it's the same thing, just the lines that have been removed. An interesting volatile day here on April the 15th. But you have this original kind of move. When you are looking at this back at the time, you can say hindsight is 2020. But when you have a situation where you have a major horizontal resistance in an uptrend, and it has had a good duration of time and a decent amount of hits in this type of an example here, and it's holding an uptrend as spectacular as this is doing, it should never come as a surprise to see the follow-through occur to something like this. And one should never be too scared. When you have a situation where you make this move, and how great one would feel when you have the 3 days up. You consolidate for one day, oh, that's okay. Let the market correct sideways for a day or a few. That's fine. But then you look at this candle here. It's a small red candle down. But what did the candle look like when it was at the bottom? It would have been a large, the biggest red candle down you'd be seeing, bigger than this one in here, and it would have been right back to where it came from. And that's always one of the things I'm looking for when it makes a decent leg higher. Has the leg been like the three little bears, not too big, not too small, but just right? And in this case, yeah, because small would have been like 77. And you know what, there's a lot of places, there's a lot of legs higher that are just right. It's just you don't want it to be to the point where, okay, this thing came from, say, a 52 handle to 75, then it breaks resistance to 190, and I'm expecting it to go back to 75. No, that's like way too high of a break high rally, if you catch my drift on that one. But anyway, yeah, that's definitely worth noting. Since that point, we've got what we can do, the similarity in here. A situation in which it has had this resistance point that it hasn't beaten, and now like 7 days of trading, yet uptrend lines. It's continuing. Okay, interesting. Let's shorten out this time frame, remove the lines, because now all I have to do is go right click, drawing tools, and you can't remove all drawing tools. That's at the very bottom. You can't see it on your view, but I can, and they're all gone. And that would also have removed the lines had there been any in here. 3 hour time frame. So what do we see in here? I mean, an uptrend line is so obvious. You can connect these ones so perfectly. You can put even some more in. It's easy to do. Go like this. I don't like doing these lines per se on this site, other than the horizontal rays, because they're easy to do. But you got all of these uptrend lines in place. I've drawn 3 of them in, and they're not easy to draw in with a setup, but they really are easy to draw in just looking at where to put them in. I mean, one might have different rates of ascent, but in the same similar direction area, because the market has been making a lot of higher lows, and when that's the case, you're going to be making uptrend lines. And let's shorten out this time frame even further, because this is interesting to say the least. And before I do that, I'm going to place a horizontal ray in. That was creepy for me, maybe for you too, where I tried to just highlight this and then move it over here for easy viewing. So we have this level of resistance. Where did it happen to come up to? Well, just an area where it was, I mean, any area up around here, whether it was here or wherever, it's all in the general area where it came from. It's a lower high from this one, but when you have a move from this high to this low, That's not uncommon. It's just important when you have an uptrend and you make this low, you can point out all of these lows in here. This low, this low, this low. Okay, so if the last key low was 750, before that it was 702. How about we try holding above 780 or 790 or something? I don't even know what that low is going to be yet. As of now, it's this break at 790, but if there's any price corrections lower, it goes to 780 or something. I'm going to be saying higher low for this, and that original trend line that I drew might be somewhere where it may meet with, but that's not... Okay, I was going to say that's neither here or there. It would be there if it goes there, but it's not here. Because here... sees, like I say, this resistance back to the 18 average of lows, where it ends up resisting it again, and it again goes to the 18 lows. When you were looking at this intraday, it was strengthening the movement of Ethereum as it was getting closer. Okay. It's consolidating well within the 18 average of highs, but we've still had this double circle area that it's got to get by. That's where it stands right now. And it's set up now for what is 4 periods is still at a glorious, a magnificent level. We still got these 3 lows in here. So if it comes back down here on this time frame, it makes a higher low to this point. Well, that's all fine and dandy. Generally speaking, when you have a pattern like this, it's now been resisted on 3 occasions. The first 2 times that it came there, again, it had decent price corrections to 18 lows. This one hasn't done that. It has just consolidated for 3 consecutive periods. There's 52 minutes and 33 seconds left in this one. So it's 2/3 plus of the way through this. A good amount of the trading is done at that point. Usually you get a good idea how your period is going to go through when you're 2/3 of the way there. So it looks as if, to me, it's ready to break through. I would expect a move to this previous high to occur very fast, like these size green candles basically, when it gets there. And what happens to this point, this is what becomes very difficult, because I think long term you just stay with the flow of the bullish move. That's the easy part. But in stating, okay, we're now at 60, we're at the 84 handle. Think we can buy it back at the 82? And I'm going to seriously say maybe, because a move like this doesn't surprise me. Also, if it just goes there and stays there, which is what this is, doesn't surprise me either. But I realize if it doesn't do that and it just keeps going higher, well, obviously, we always want to look to see where did you come from. We'll do that again in a bit. But you'd expect decent size moves in situations on the break of those kinds of natures. So then, because that's something you'd be looking for, let's look back again at the more longer term. Where would you go on a break of this resistance? Of course, I had the Fibonacci number in from before. The market grinds higher. That's what it has been doing since the low. That's what it did during the entire ABC high to low, which of course in this case is the end of January highs and the end of March lows. So basically all of February and March. It grinded its way lower. It's now been over a month basically doing the polar opposite of what it did on the way down. So you still got to give the benefit of the doubt that, yeah, you're going to have a green candle like this that I talk about, and then it's just going to continue grinding up as a possibility. And then when you talk about A, B, high and lows, they're known after the facts, and they can pretty much occur at any time. But you're saying that back in here on Christmas, oh, Ethereum's at 0.05 against Bitcoin, is it too high? Well, it could go down, yeah. Tops and bottoms can happen at any time. So back on Christmas this time, yeah, maybe we'll pull back to 35 and maybe we won't. We didn't. And then maybe it just has an amazing move, and that amazing move is better than double its gain. So therefore, same thinking applies again. Maybe it goes down a bit, even goes up for one leg higher to like 94 and pulls back. Maybe it pulls back to 60 or whatever, but maybe it doesn't. And it just goes back to this previous high up around 115. But it was even higher than that before. And I don't want to look at too many days. I only want to look at a few periods. So let's take a look at this at the 3-day chart. I haven't looked at this time frame on this pairing anytime on the recency bias, but I'm going to expand it further and just do a bit of drawing on here. The low, the high. The correctionary move didn't work. And like I've stated before, when you have an interesting long move up and you have all this empty space on the charts, and we're going to proceed to the weekly chart, you want to see more long term, because it obviously failed this 18. Now it did have a decent leg lower, but if it falls on this moves, that means are you going to have a further correctionary trend within its gain through price? In this case, the answer was yes, because point A, point B, point C, well, this is A, this is C, and C is a lot higher right now than that of A. Tops and bottoms are known after the fact. So if technically speaking this topped out and then it went like this, you can technically now lower C, and within going from A, B to C, you're going to have ups and downs along the way kind of deal. But do you give the benefit of the doubt to the buyers or the sellers in here? I think short term, again, we've already seen reasons why this could go higher. And I would be looking for support on any move back to the 18 average. I'm going to remove the drawings and then look at this even more long term. So let's look at this on the weekly chart. So there's a weekly chart where this 18 average is acting a little bit differently. So I'm just going to notice that, let's get rid of all of this. It's been in a nice little uptrend. So you have this key low and this key high. Price action going from 007 and change to no O's, 114. Single 07 would be a 10x gain. And single 07 to 14 is a double. So this was a 20x gain from low to high. So when you go from like 140 down to 25 and like, yeah, so this low here, that lost a lot. A lot of good opportunities to trade in and out as a trader, buy low, sell high, and so many different formats available to do such. But since that point, we've had this high, but it's lower than this one. So we're still correcting within this move. We've had this low, noticeably higher than this one. And we currently stand pretty close to smack dab in the middle from the last two key points, as well as these key points as well. So uptrend line, downtrend line, symmetrical triangle, correctionary phase. You've had that big move in 2017. Is it a real one? Or did it get a little out of hand? Does it need to go down just a little bit? Yeah, it was a real move, but it went a little too high. this thing should have went to 35 handle, whatever, yada yada. That's the thing about the free markets. That's all about price discovery. And we're discovering what the prices are right now. And we're all part of this game. And we can make investment choices along, or affect our investments along the way. And as traders, it's up to each one of us to make the decisions that is required. Unless, of course, you got someone you're paying for to do it for you. And other than laws and regulations, I see nothing wrong with that as long as you have someone smart in which you are helping you out. But throwing that aside, right in the middle of this, but the 18 average is telling me the exact same thing on the weekly chart. It's been going average in here. It's been going sideways rather in here ever since, well, Northern Hemisphere winter, deep into it. Well, February, March. So therefore, the move that I talk about, that it looks like short term it's going to have, the weekly chart, you really can't see much about it, but you can see a little bit where maybe it would be, and it is. So it's got a good short-term bullish setup. But that short-term bullish setup means it should have a break of this band. And that means a statement of a retest of this previous high. So it doesn't even break the neutrality of this trend. It would just give it up bias within neutrality. And it's got a lot of heavy up bias within it. And so I'm not going to go over the multiple layers for why that's the case. But full-fledged bull market on this is really getting above here. Because as I've mentioned about the situation of key high and key low, and at least with this one and this one, telling us that this correctionary move was just that. It corrected it well through price, and it's ready to get back going. And of course, you have key highs. You have this one. If it breaks through this one, and I can test Fibonacci numbers later on, I don't need to at this point, but you'd be talking about making another leg higher and just putting where I think blindly, as I would call this, and it's not really blind, but it's blind in not using any mathematical formulation. So in that case, that's what the blindness means. I'm looking at about half, 0.4, 0.4-ish or so to 0.5 for where it could go. Now, I said I was going to do other different coins against Ethereum, but it's already over 30 minutes. I'm going to pass on such. I went through a lot of different key things, made this a very in-depth analysis, which I'm going to do at some point. I get requests different times. This was not a request. This has been requested before in the past. Generally speaking, I do ignore all requests. If anyone ends up giving different Bitcoin gifts along the way and says, please, can you give me a lot of information on something, whatever code, and they say what it is, it's hard to say no. But I do like to do longer videos covering something very specifically. For I don't need to cover the fine details that I went over this anytime in the near future. For the near future is what I've talked about with how well this bullish setup is looking. So I'm expecting this to make its move, but it's always going to be working towards getting this out of the very long-term neutrality. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.